Do this with me for 7 days and watch the money come. Neville Goddard taught that the money you are waiting for is already written into an inner conversation you have not changed yet. There is an old story in the second book of Kings of a widow crying out that a creditor is coming to take her 2 sons as slaves, and the prophet asks her, "What do you have in your house?" And she says, "Nothing but a pot of oil." And he tells her, "Go borrow thee vessels abroad of all thy neighbors, even empty vessels, borrow not a few." That is 2 Kings chapter 4 verse 3. And Neville Goddard would stop you right there and say, "Do you see it? The oil did not stop flowing because it ran dry. The oil stopped flowing the moment she ran out of empty vessels to hold it." And you are that widow, and the empty vessels are the assumptions you are willing to hold in your imagination, and most of you stop borrowing vessels after the second or third day of trying something new. You assume for a moment, you feel a flicker of relief, and then you go back to counting what is actually in your bank account, and the oil stops. Not because the supply failed you, but because you failed to bring another empty vessel. So, before we go any further, say it with me. I am someone money moves toward easily. I am calm before I see the proof. Imagination creates my reality. And again, I am someone money moves toward easily. I am calm before I see the proof. Imagination creates my reality. If something in you just went quiet, subscribe now, so that tomorrow's teaching finds you before the old thought does. And before you do anything else, go to the comments and type the 2 words, "It's done," not as a hope, but as a private seal on what you already feel moving. Let it be quiet. Let it be certain. It's done. The first key is to stop treating money as a thing that lives outside of you, waiting to be captured, and start treating it as a state of consciousness you either occupy or you do not. Neville Goddard taught that the whole world is a mirror of consciousness, and that includes your bank account, your bills, your opportunities, all of it. So when you sit and worry over a bill, you are not being realistic. You are rehearsing lack until it hardens into your identity. It is not that money is scarce. It is that scarcity has become the state you keep visiting, night after night, morning after morning, and most people never even notice they are visiting it. They think they are simply being responsible, checking the account again, running the numbers again. But Neville would ask you gently, responsible to whom? Because the checking rarely changes the number. It only deepens the groove of anxiety you are already standing in. And here is the quick win. The next time you feel that familiar tightness about money, do not argue with the bill. Do not check the account again. Instead, ask yourself one simple question. What would I feel like right now if this were already handled? And then, just for a moment, borrow that feeling the way the widow borrowed a vessel. You do not need proof yet. You only need the feeling. Because feeling is the secret Neville always pointed to. Not effort, not hustle, feeling. Let me give you a picture of this. A woman I knew used to open her mail with her stomach in a knot, envelope after envelope, bracing herself before she even saw what was inside, until she began pausing before every envelope and silently claiming, "This is good news." At first it felt foolish. At first nothing around her had changed, but she kept doing it anyway, one envelope at a time. And within weeks, the tone of the mail itself seemed to change. Not because the postal service reformed itself, but because she had reformed the self that was opening it. Notice she did not fix her finances first and then feel better. She felt differently first, and her finances followed the feeling. That order matters more than anything else in this key. Most people have it backwards, waiting for the account to look a certain way before they allow themselves to feel a certain way. And so they wait forever, because the outer can only follow the inner. It can never lead it. So consider this day one of doing this with me. Small, quiet, one feeling at a time, not a whole life rebuilt in an afternoon. Just one bill, one envelope, one breath. met differently than you met it yesterday. I am the state I choose, not the state that finds me. The second key is revision, and revision is simply this. At the end of each day, before you fall asleep, you take the events that disappointed you financially, and instead of replaying them as they happened, you replay them as you wished they had happened. Neville Goddard taught that revision is one of the most practical tools ever given to man, because most people spend their nights unconsciously rehearsing every disappointment of the day, the overdue invoice, the price tag that made them wince, the friend who mentioned their raise, and each replay sinks the disappointment deeper into the self. So tonight, sit quietly, close your eyes, take one moment that stung. Maybe you checked your account and felt that familiar drop in your chest. Now revise it. See the balance the way you wished it had appeared. Feel the relief you wanted to feel in that exact moment. Dwell in it the way you would dwell over a favorite memory, because to your imagination, a vividly revised scene and a lived scene leave nearly the same impression. This is not pretending, this is correcting the record before it gets filed away as your history. Think how strange it is that most of us will spend 20 minutes replaying an argument we lost, perfecting the comeback we did not say in time, and yet never think to spend those same 20 minutes replaying the version where the money simply worked out. It is not the day that writes your history. It is the version of the day you rehearse afterward that becomes your history. And once you begin this, you notice how many small financial stings pass through an ordinary day. The price that made you hesitate, the message from the bank you almost did not open, the moment you told a friend, "Oh, I cannot this month," each one a tiny, uncorrected page, and left alone, it becomes tomorrow's expectation. Consider a woman who worked in a shop and every night replayed the customer who complained about her prices, feeling small all over again, until she was taught instead to revise the scene, seeing that same customer thank her warmly, feeling herself steady and well paid, and within a season her shop felt different to walk into, not because the customers changed first, but because she had stopped handing her nights to the old scene. And consider Robert, who asked for a raise and was told to wait until next quarter, and for weeks came home rehearsing the hesitation in his employer's voice, until one evening he refused to give the scene another night, instead picturing his employer looking up and saying, "Let us make this happen now," feeling the plain relief of a decision already made in his favor, and he simply returned to that revised scene night after night, and within weeks, without another word from him, he was called in and given more than he had first asked for. It was not the asking that moved it, it was the nightly correcting of the scene. Do not mistake this for wishful daydreaming. Neville Goddard was precise here. Revision is an actual act of creation, because the day just lived is only the last state you assumed. And a new state, felt clearly enough at night, becomes the truer parent of your tomorrow. It is not that the day already happened and cannot be touched. It is that the day is only finished once you decide which version of it you carry forward. So pick one small sting from today, just one, and tonight, before sleep takes you, quietly give it the ending you actually wanted. My nights author a future I actually want. The third key is living in the end. And living in the end means you do not wait for the check to clear before you feel like someone the world pays well. You assume the feeling now and walk through your ordinary day soaked in it. It is not a technique you perform for 5 minutes and then set aside like a chore. It is a dwelling place, a room in consciousness you move into and simply live inside. Most people treat the wish fulfilled as a guest. They invite over for a visit. They feel it briefly in the morning, and then show it the door, the second the day gets busy. But Neville Goddard taught that you must dwell there, not visit there. It is not a feeling you borrow for a moment. It is an address you move into and stop giving up. So let me walk you through what this looks like, hour by hour, because most people nod along with this teaching and have no idea how to apply it before breakfast. 7 in the morning, you wake, and before your feet touch the floor, you lie still for 30 seconds and feel the quiet ease of someone for whom money is not a source of anxiety. 8 in the morning, making coffee, you let your mind drift to what it would feel like to write a check for something you love without flinching. 10 in the morning, an old worry surfaces, and you simply return, gently, to the assumption, I am provided for. Noon, a coworker complains about money, and instead of joining the complaint, which Neville warned would only add your energy to their state, you quietly hold your own assumption, unspoken. 3 in the afternoon, an ordinary bill shows up, and instead of the old spike, you breathe and say inwardly, this is only asking what I have, and I have enough. 6 in the evening, you take 5 full minutes, no phone, no distraction, and you sit in the feeling of financial ease as though it were already your permanent address. Not a vacation you are visiting, but the house you actually live in. There was a man I knew who wanted to move his small business into a larger space, and every time he walked past the empty storefront he wanted, his stomach would tighten around the cost. So he began instead to walk past it the way an owner walks past his own building, unhurried, at ease. Glancing in the window the way you glance at something already yours, he did not check the listing price again. He simply let himself feel the quiet pride of a man who already held the keys. Weeks later, the landlord lowered the terms before he had even made an offer. It is not that the building changed, it is that the man walking past it had changed. And notice, he did not need a single outward sign along the way. Evidence is what the end produces. Evidence is never what you wait for before you enter it. It is not a mood you fall into when circumstances happen to be kind. It is a house you choose to live in on the hard days especially. The day the bill is larger than expected. The day the client goes quiet. Those are not exceptions to living in the end. Those are the very days it is built for. Because anyone can feel wealthy on the morning good news arrives. The discipline Neville Goddard actually taught was feeling it on the morning nothing has arrived yet. And there is a difference between imagining one triumphant scene once and living inside a quiet, ordinary state all day. The scene is a visit. The state is a residence. And residences are maintained the way you keep a house warm in winter, by tending the fire again and again, small log after small log, long before you feel the whole room grow warm. This is what living in the end means. 100 small returns across one ordinary day. Neville Goddard taught that assumptions, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. And persisted is the whole key. Not felt once, but returned to, gently, all day long. It is not the size of the feeling in any one moment. It is the number of moments across the day you refuse to leave that feeling behind. I return all day to the state I have chosen. The fourth key is self-concept, because underneath every money problem is a quiet, often unspoken sentence about who you are. And Neville Goddard taught that you cannot outperform your own self-concept for very long. You might get a lucky windfall, but if your concept of self is someone who struggles, who is bad with money, the windfall will find its way back out of your hands as surely as water finds a crack in a dam. It is not the money that needs fixing, it is the sentence. So ask yourself honestly, what is the sentence you carry? Is it, I am always just getting by? Is it, money slips through my fingers? Is it, people like me do not get the big opportunities? Whatever it is, however old, however much it sounds like simply being realistic, it is not realism, it is a state you have been rehearsing for years until it hardened into something you now call your personality. And this is why two people can earn the exact same wage and live entirely different financial lives. One always finds himself scraping by the 20th of the month, certain that money simply does not stretch for him, and the other, earning no more, somehow always has exactly what is needed when it is needed. Not because one is smarter with spreadsheets, but because one of them carries the sentence, there is never enough, and the other quietly carries, There is always enough, and each sentence goes to work, faithfully arranging the small daily decisions and the large invisible outcomes to match itself. I knew a shopkeeper who used to apologize every time he raised a price, certain his customers thought him greedy, and business trickled accordingly, until he began, quietly, privately, repeating to himself, "I am a fair man who is paid well for what I give." Nothing about his prices changed, only the sentence changed, and within a season his shop was busier than it had ever been. Not because the town changed, but because he had stopped rehearsing a smaller version of himself. So today, pause for a moment and pick one real sentence you have been carrying about money, just one, and quietly begin trying on its replacement. I am someone money likes being around. Wear it the way you would wear a coat that is slightly too big at first. Awkward, a little large in the shoulders, but you keep wearing it anyway. Into the grocery store, into the conversation about the bill, into the moment you check your account, until one day, without ceremony, it simply fits, because it will. Self-concept is not fixed, it is only well practiced, and what has been practiced can always be practiced again in a new direction. I am the one who decides who I am. Pause with me for just a breath here. Subscribe now, so the next teaching reaches you at the right moment. The fifth key is the one that ties every other key together. And I want to walk through it slowly, in pieces, because this is the deepest working I know for money specifically. So settle in. There is no rush here. This is the key the others were only preparing you to receive first. Consider the state Neville Goddard called the state akin to sleep. This is not ordinary daydreaming. It is a drowsy, heavy-lidded condition. Right at the edge of actual sleep, when your body has gone still, your limbs feel heavy, your breathing has slowed on its own, and in that narrow doorway, and only there, you slip in one short scene. Not a whole story, one small scene that implies the money has already come. Maybe transferring money into savings with ease. Maybe a friend saying, "I heard things turned around for you." Maybe simply opening your banking app and feeling nothing but calm. You feel it briefly, vividly, and let yourself drift into sleep still holding it. There is no clenching here, no gripping. The very drowsiness disarms the arguing part of the mind. So what you plant sinks into softened ground rather than hard, dry soil. Pause for a moment and pick one real scene, small, specific, something only true if the money had already arrived. Hold it gently, because everything else in this key depends on you having chosen one. Second, consider a man I will call Daniel, who spent months waiting on a payment that kept getting delayed. Promises pushed back week after week, and every night he lay awake rehearsing the delay itself. Jaw tight in the dark over excuses no one had even given yet, until one evening, exhausted, he simply stopped, and in that drowsy state before sleep, he pictured one small scene, his own hand depositing the check, the ordinary motion of it, the paper crease, the teller's nod, and he felt the quiet relief of it being done. He did this every night for a little over a week, not checking his inbox, not measuring whether it was working, simply returning to the same small scene, and on the ninth day, without warning, the payment came through in full. It was not persistence in emailing that moved it. It was persistence in that one scene, held quietly, night after night, in the doorway where his doubting mind had gone still. Third, consider that this works because of what Neville meant by "I am." Not "I am this or that," but "I am," pure and simple, the bare awareness of being, before it takes on any state, and every state you have occupied, wealthy or lacking, was simply the "I am" wearing a garment. So when you sit in that state akin to sleep, and feel yourself already provided for, you are choosing which garment the "I am" wears tonight. Instead of the old garment of lack, you offer it something new. And here is the mercy in this. The I am does not care how long you wore the old garment. It does not consult your bank statement before agreeing to change. It is willing to wear a new one the moment you offer it, with full sincerity. Tonight, the delay you feel is never coming from the I am itself. It is only your own reluctance to take the old garment off. Fourth, consider that Neville Goddard taught everyone is you pushed out, which means the client who is slow to pay, the boss who has not yet given the raise, are not separate forces working against you. They are your own inner state, worn as a face, pushed outside of you into appearance. So the slow-paying client is a mirror showing you a state you still hold inside, maybe a residue of doubting whether you deserve prompt payment, maybe an old fear that good things arrive late for you. And the moment you truly assume ease without straining, the outer characters begin behaving differently. The slow payer suddenly pays. The boss mentions the raise unprompted. Not because you pressed harder, but because you were never dealing with them at all. You were only ever dealing with a state they had been faithfully mirroring back to you. Fifth, consider the doubt that always comes creeping around the third or fourth night, quietly asking whether this is really working. And Neville Goddard would answer plainly. Of course, you are imagining things. Imagining is the one power at work here. The question was never whether you are imagining, only what you are imagining. So when doubt visits, you do not argue with it. You simply return, once more, to the small true scene you already chose, gently, the way you would lead a wandering dog back to its own yard, because the doubt is not your enemy. It is only the old garment trying once more to be worn sixth. And finally, consider persistence, because none of this holds without it. One night in the state akin to sleep plants a seed, but a garden requires tending, so you return, night after night, to the same simple scene, the same quiet feeling of money already come, and you do not check each morning to see if it worked. Checking is doubt wearing the costume of curiosity. You simply keep returning, the way the widow kept borrowing vessels. One more and one more, refusing to stop simply because the oil had not yet reached the doorway. And one morning, without announcement, you will notice the outer world has quietly rearranged itself to agree with the state you kept sitting in at night. This is not luck. This is the oldest law there is. Imagination, persisted in, hardening into fact. Daniel did not know on night 1 or night 5 whether his scene would become fact. He only knew he could keep returning to it. And that returning was the entire work. I return every night until the unseen becomes seen. The sixth key is quiet fidelity. Because, do this with me for 7 days, is not a slogan, it is the actual assignment. Not 7 days of perfect feeling, not 7 days without a single doubt, just 7 days of returning, morning and night, to the state of the wish fulfilled around money. 7 mornings of choosing a calmer thought before your feet touch the floor. 7 nights of returning gently to that same assumption before sleep. That is the whole assignment, and it is smaller than you think, and it is also harder than you think, because the ego loves to check results on day 2. The ego loves to peak before anything has had time to settle. And Neville Goddard taught that the only real failure available to you is giving up the assumption before it has had time to harden into fact. So let me give you a picture of what quiet fidelity actually looks like in an ordinary week. Think of a baker who opens her small shop every morning at 5, long before any customer arrives. Some mornings the till stays thin. Some afternoons the shelves are still full at closing. And if she judged her craft by any single day, she would have quit years ago. But she does not judge by the day. She simply shows up. She kneads the dough with the same care whether the shop is empty or full. She wipes the same counter. She lights the same oven. And she does this not because day 3 proved anything, but because the doing itself is the faith. And slowly, without a single dramatic morning to point to, the neighborhood begins to smell that bread from 3 streets away. And one day the line reaches the door, and no single day caused it. The whole quiet week did. This is exactly what your 7 days are. Not a magic trick performed on day 4, but an unglamorous kneading of the same assumption. Morning after morning, whether or not the outer day gives you any evidence at all. So if day 3 feels like nothing happened, keep kneading. If day 5 feels almost silly, keep kneading, because the widow did not stop borrowing vessels when the oil was only halfway up the first jar. She kept going until every vessel in the house was full, and only then did the oil stop, not from lack, but because there was nowhere left to pour it. Let your 7 days be exactly that, an unglamorous, quiet, faithful pouring. And when day 7 comes, keep the state anyway, because this was never really about 7 days. It was about becoming someone for whom this is simply how life works now. Someone who does not need the evidence of Tuesday to keep believing on Wednesday. Someone who tends the same inner flame the baker tends her oven, without asking the fire to explain itself. I do this with quiet faith until it becomes who I am. Here is the whole picture. It is not that money is scarce. It is that you keep visiting the state of scarcity in your imagination. It is not the past that needs to change. It is the version of the past you keep rehearsing at night that needs revising. It is not one grand ritual that moves your world. It is 100 small returns to the feeling of the wish fulfilled across one ordinary day. It is not what you do for money. It is who you have quietly decided you are. It is not the people around you who are withholding or delaying. It is the state inside you they have been faithfully mirroring all along. And it is not 7 days of perfect feeling that is asked of you. It is 7 days of quiet, unglamorous fidelity to a single assumption. And if you look closely, you will see these were never 6 separate keys at all. They were 6 turns of the very same key. The recognition that imagination is the only power at work in your life, that consciousness is the one and only reality, and that the whole of your outer life, the bills, the checks, the slow clients, and the sudden good news, all of it, is simply imagination, pushed out, and made to look like circumstance if you are ready to stop visiting this teaching once and actually live inside it. Day after day, the 21-day reality shift is exactly built for that. 21 mornings and 21 nights walking you gently through this very practice. The state akin to sleep, revision, self-concept, all of it, held for you in order, so you are never guessing what to do next. It is priced simply at $27. And it carries a full 30-day money-back guarantee, because I want you to test it, not just believe in it. You will find the link in the description below, waiting for you the moment you decide 7 days was only the beginning. So say it with me one last time. I am someone money moves toward easily. I am calm before I see the proof. Imagination creates my reality. And that is the whole quiet secret hiding inside the title of this video. Do this with me for 7 days. Not because 7 is magic, but because 7 is simply long enough for a new state to stop feeling like pretending and start feeling like home. And when it does, you will not need to chase the money. You will simply watch it come.